Hey you guys, we are back with another video, and this time we are going to be talking about the dark side, which is something most people don't talk about, but I feel, especially with INFJs, this is a topic that is of great interest because INFJs, in my opinion, actually need to encounter evil or delve into their dark side in order to fully mature into the best version of themselves. So, like most people, when INFJs, when they're first born, right, they're naive about how the world works, right? They think everything's positive. They think everyone's friendly, and as you know, as you grow up, this is not the case, right? Not everyone has good intentions in mind. Some people are out to hurt you, and some people are just, they might just hurt you just because it's amusing, or they may be in a bad state. They're depressed, or they don't like seeing people that are happy because it, gets on their nerves, and they get jealous because they're like, why should you be happy, right? Why can't you be miserable like me? And they try to project that onto you. And so the best way for them to do that is to hurt you or make you miserable so that you're on the same level as them, and they get a sense of satisfaction from that. And the reason why, now, when it comes to the dark side, INFJs, I believe, they understand it more than any other type can once they get older. So when they're younger, like I was, when I was younger, it was very difficult for me to comprehend why someone would do something negative or do something evil or try to hurt others, right? I just didn't understand it. It was a concept that was completely foreign to me because I was raised to believe that, you should help others as much as you can. I grew up around very strict parents, and you can actually read about that more in my book, which I'll put in the description. But basically, I was raised by very strict parents, and so I had a very strong moral code as to what was acceptable and what was not acceptable, right? So if I did something acceptable, I didn't get punished. But if I did something that was unacceptable, I would get punished. So I learned right from wrong. And then when I went to society, as a kid, I would see other people doing things that were unacceptable, but then they wouldn't get punished for it. So as a result, it was hard for me to comprehend why they were doing it, because basically it never occurred to me that they never got punished. And so this could be attributed to bad parenting. Maybe their parents are too lax on the kids, or maybe they don't have time to take care of the kids. But basically, even if someone doesn't have time to take care of the kids, eventually as they grow up, society or the universe will teach them those lessons whether or not they like it. So for INFJs, the reason why many of them, I believe, are so mature is because at an early age, they are able to go through a set of experiences that traumatize them in some ways. So for example, there's one time when I was 4 years old, right? And I was outside on the grass. I was just observing this snail, because I'd never seen a snail before in my life. And then 10 seconds later, a kid just walks over and drops the ball on the snail and just crushes it. And in that moment, I was so taken aback by what he did, because he intentionally did it. And after that, he was even smiling with an evil grin on his face. And at that moment, that was the first time in which I actually felt angry, because it's just why would you do this for no reason other than your own guilty self-pleasure, right? It didn't make sense to me. And so over many years, as I'm going through, as I'm growing up, I realize that evil is actually a necessity in this world to a certain extent. To teach the INFJ that some people, when they are in that state, they don't want to be saved. Not everyone wants to be saved, right? Some actually want to drown. So for example, some people might want to smoke cigarettes because that's their lifestyle. They like doing it. Some people want to go skydiving because it's fun to them. Some people, want to indulge in drugs or other harmful activities that are bad for their body, and they know it's bad for their body. But you as an INFJ, if you try to convince them, or if you try to save them, if you forcefully take away their cigarettes and be you can't smoke, they're going to get pissed at you, and it's actually going to create a result that is not the one that you intended. So INFJs have this problem with wanting to always save other people. They want to save the world, they want to save their friends, they want to save their family. When they see them in a negative situation, like for example, if they're smoking. But then the INFJs must realize that not everyone wants to be saved. Some people, you just have to leave them alone and let the universe or life run its course, right? Because some people, so for example, people that are depressed, right, especially, if you try to talk them out of their depression, and so like people that are depressed might say like, oh, life is miserable, life is not worth living, stuff like that. Or they'll be like, why should I continue living? And if you try to convince them why life is good, they can't see your perspective because they are in another state, right? They're in a state of depression. They're in that lower state. They want to see the world from their perspective. They want to feel like a victim. They don't want to acknowledge the fact that maybe not all people are good and maybe not all people are bad. Because if that were true, right? If it was true that not all people are bad, then that means that some people are good. And then all of a sudden their perspective no longer has merit, right? Because they have been accusing the world of being, this terrible place to live in and everyone is evil. All of a sudden, if you bring in the perspective that like not all people are bad, then all of a sudden their perspective is gone. And they have to rethink the perspective that or the opinion that they had in the moment. Whereas they would rather sit with the emotion of being miserable because it's easier than looking within themselves and doing the work of like processing, why am I feeling this way? And is my perspective flawed? Which is why a lot of people that I know, some of them have difficulty with seeing other people's perspectives, especially the ones that are like negative or cynical, because they want to have that perspective in their life. They find comfort in believing that, other people suck, instead of saying, maybe it's I'm the one who sucks, right? Maybe it's I'm the one who has a bad attitude, and that's why everyone's treating me this way. But no, they would rather say that other people suck, because then they don't have the responsibility of looking within themselves and doing all the work and trying to better themselves. And then another point, especially with INFJs, trying to save everyone. So they need the dark side in order to mature. So they need to come across people that have bad intentions or want to stay in this state of misery, because then that's going to teach them that they can't save everyone and they shouldn't. And I'll give a really good example of this, right? So for example, say that one day you gain superpowers and you become Superman, right? You can fly, you can save everyone, whoever you want, right? You're indestructible. The only the problem with that is, even though you have the capability to save people from, like, let's say like you can save kids from like burning buildings, or you can save kids that are like starving, or you can rescue people from like accidents or crimes, burglars. It doesn't mean that you should, because number one, you are only one person, and so for you to be able to save everyone around the world when you're just one person is nearly impossible. Because first off, you're just one person, you're going to burn yourself out if you try to do that. If you're flying from like this Canada to like Europe, and then you have to fly to like Africa and then back to Canada and Australia, and you do this 50 times a day, you're going to get exhausted, right? You're going to get exhausted with the amount of people that you have to save. And that's going to wear down on you, right? When in reality, what you should be doing is asking yourself, is it my responsibility? Is it my responsibility to save these people? So even though you have the power to save people, even though you have the power to bring someone out of their depression or give them a better perspective on what life is, it doesn't mean you should, right? Because you have to respect people's free will. Some people want to smoke, and if they want to smoke, that's completely fine, because it's their life. As an INFJ, or as someone who's an empath or someone who's caring, you can't step into their life and be like, I want you to stop smoking because it's unacceptable, because they're not going to accept it, and you do not know the consequences of your actions. So for example, if you convince someone to stop smoking, they might just take their own life, because then they have nothing else left to live for, and then all of a sudden your intentions, which were good, backfire on you, right? You didn't want the guy to take his own life. In fact, your intentions were to prolong his life by helping him to quit smoking. But then now all of a sudden, because you've taken away the only thing that he has left to live for, he has nothing left to live for, and that's why he takes his own life. And as a result, now you as an INFJ, you're going to feel really bad about it. You're going to be like, oh my gosh, like, I did not know that my good intentions would lead to this outcome. And that sometimes happens, which is, right, because this world, sometimes stuff happens. So as a superhero, imagine that you're a superhero. Even if you have the capability to save people, it doesn't mean you should. Sometimes you need to let them drown because you don't know what will occur in the future. So for example, let's say there's a fire and it needs to be put out, right? So then you can make the decision to be like, I'm gonna grab buckets of water from the ocean and I'm gonna pour them on the building to save people. But at the same time, it's also possible that if you did nothing in the next 5 seconds, rain clouds would go over the fire and just put it out. And then in that situation, whether or not you did something, the result is still the same. So just because you can help someone doesn't mean you should. You need to be aware that some people are working through life at their own pace, right? You can't rush someone when they're trying to mature. You can't rush someone and make them see their perspective and make them see your perspective when they're not ready for it. There's an old saying, right, which I got this from Sadhguru, which is the worst thing that could happen to you in life is to receive blessings when you're not ready for them. Because in those instances, what will happen is that it will force you to become someone that you may not be ready to become. So for example, if you gave a 10-year-old kid $10 billion, in order for that kid to use it responsibly, he would have a lot of growing up to do. He would need to understand how the economy works. He would need to understand the repercussions of his actions. He would need to understand just how powerful money is and all of the consequences that could arise from using that money irresponsibly. And so, if you give a kid $10 billion, all of a sudden he has to learn all these things. He can't enjoy his childhood, right? He's a 10-year-old kid. He wants to go outside and play ball with his friends. All of a sudden you're dumping $10 billion on him, and you're telling him, hey, you gotta fix the economy. You gotta solve, homeless sheltering. You gotta feed the hungry. You gotta talk to world leaders. You gotta think of the best way to, speak to financial banks, set up deals, business deals, like all this stuff that a kid has no business doing. When in reality, this kid just should be enjoying his childhood, falling in love with kids, or like little girls. I don't know what little kids do these days. Play ball, have crush on like little girls, pranks on their teachers. They want to enjoy their life, right? You can't push them into being someone that they're not. And so, even though you have good intentions as an INFJ or as anyone who wants to help the world, you can't push it onto someone. And this is why I believe INFJs, especially INFJs, they need the dark side in order to mature. Because if they don't face the dark side and they only live life through a positive lens, then they will begin to enforce that positive lens on everyone that they see, which is going to lead to problems. Because not everyone is going to see your perspective, right? So there's always at least two perspectives when it comes to any issue. So for example, one person might love rainy days and another person might hate rainy days, right? That's two perspectives. So an INFJ might be like, I love rainy days because that's when, it's quiet and I can enjoy the peace and serenity that comes with rainy day. Whereas another person might be like, I hate rainy days because then I can't go outside and play with my friends. So that's always two perspectives. That doesn't mean that you should try to force someone to see your perspective. So you shouldn't try to force someone to be like, rainy days are awesome and you suck ass. You just need to acknowledge their opinion and then agree to disagree. So even if someone has a differing opinion, someone has a differing perspective from you, it doesn't mean that you have to force them to see your perspective. And at the same time, they shouldn't be forcing you to see their perspective, right? So it's free. So both of you have free will. Both of you have the right to see the world the way you want, right? So for example, some people want to help others, others want to harm others. You can't force someone to want to help others, and you can't force someone to want to harm others. It all depends on that individual person and how they want to live their life. The only thing you can do is, if you don't agree with someone, is just to, keep your distance from them. So yeah, that's why I believe the INFJs, they need the dark side to mature in their life, because without a good grasp of the dark side, which is inherent in all human beings, right? We all have the dark side. We all have the potential to do evil. It's just a matter of whether or not we want to, right? So for example, if we wanted to, we could every single person in this world could go out and chop down a tree. And chop down all the trees until there are no trees left, right? We all have the potential to do that. But we don't, because we need trees to breathe. We need trees to provide us with oxygen. And then so, when you delve into the dark side, when you delve into the innate evil that you are capable of producing, then you have a much better understanding of yourself as a human being, as well as a better understanding of everyone around you. Because everyone has the same emotions, everyone has the same capabilities, and so once you understand the dark side of yourself, you understand how evil you can be, then you can start to be rational with your actions and your decisions, right? Now instead of doing something, let's say selfish, you can contemplate whether or not you actually want to do it, right? So if you decide to be selfish in one situation, then you can kind of think to yourself, okay, if I decide to be selfish, and let's say take all the cookies from this tray, what are the consequences of that, right? It could mean that people around you, they go hungry. Little kids could start crying because, oh no, it's like, mommy, all the cookies are gone. And so you can kind of start contemplating and getting a better understanding of how your actions impact others, even if your intentions are good, which is why INFJs, but in order to understand this, INFJs need to delve into the dark side. And in order to delve into the dark side, they need to basically examine themselves on a very deep fundamental level. So, and the easiest way to do this is to the point of like intentionally committing behaviors that are unacceptable, like purposely bumping into people or being rude to others, and then from there you can take it as far as you want to go mentally. So just like imagining the scenario playing out in your mind to avoid getting into trouble with the public, and then see how committing those acts makes you feel, or the response you get from others when you do those things or think about doing those things. Because if you think along the lines of someone who is in a negative state or who wants to, bring their dark side out, then all of a sudden you become that person and you are able to see things from their perspective. So for example, someone who, let's say, thinks that they mug, people that go down the street. And the reason why they do this is because it's an easy way to get money compared to working a 9-to-5 job where you're only making minimum wage. It's much easier to simply just, rob a rich person and get, $3,000 just like that in one go because it benefits them. Now, whether or not you should do this, I'm not recommending you do this, but by delving into the dark side of what you potentially can do, it will give you a better perspective of how other people operate, and at the same time a better understanding of who you are as a person and how you yourself are capable of doing those things. It's just that you choose not to. Hey you guys, hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, make sure to smash that like button so that YouTube recommends it to all the introverts around the world, and then we can finally fulfill our role of world domination. And if you want to as well, you can subscribe to my channel for the latest updates. And we also have a Discord channel now up and running, so if you want to hop in for meaningful discussions and for more updates on what I'm doing, please feel free to join that as well. Peace and love to you all, and have a wonderful day.